So we wanted to, of course, give you some visual depictions of how things look at Kitchener relative to some of the things we're talking about with grouping and everything else. So I'll turn this back over to Peter for that discussion.
Yes, so on this slide, you can see how we decided to categorize or logically group our corporate devices. So we basically created groups for access points for domain computers, printers, projectors, VoIP phones, guest devices, unknown devices, etc. And then in the second highlighted column, we defined conditions that each node has to meet in order to become a member of a group. So if you take a look at this slide, for instance, domain computers, we have two conditions. One condition is that detected node has to be a member of our domain. And the second condition is that we want to explicitly trust that node's MAC address. So only if these two conditions are met will a new node become a member of CoK domain computers. And you can see that just, organizationally, I just opted to precede these groups with a dot just to group them together and then keep the rest of the out-of-box groups, intact. So you can see that we have a trusted tag for our internal devices. If you look at further down, we have a group called guest devices. So if a contractor comes in with a laptop and they connect it to our network, obviously it's going to be at first detected and classified as unknown device. Then our IT service staff would take a look at that device, and then if it's a contractor, if we're sure it's a contractor's laptop, we can assign a guest tag on it. So the guest tag, you can also put it on a time expiry. So you can say today from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. this computer is tagged as a guest, and then it's going to be treated as a guest. So a little down below, I don't know if you can see it. I can only see a little bit of it, but it's a screen capture of enforcement policies. So yeah, it's down there. So basically, the enforcement policies are tied to the node group, and then you define permission for each enforcement policy. So if our newly detected node is a guest device, it will be in a guest device group, and permission allow internet only will apply. For totally unknown devices, that don't meet any of the conditions, they will end up in the unknown devices group, and the permission for that policy is deny all. So basically, other than the pulse, which is IP address assigned to that device, so Genian's policy server can see it, that device is at the dead end. Like, they cannot touch our internal network, they cannot browse the internet, and like, by defining these permissions, you explicitly, decide what a new node can or cannot do on your network. So you can see that the guest, for instance, can browse the internet. So if he plugs into our wired network, his laptop, he can go on the internet, but he cannot touch our network, internal network infrastructure. So if a device met conditions that it's a domain computer, and we explicitly put the trusted tag on it, then at the very bottom, and you can't see that, the very last enforcement policy is a default policy with permission that allows all access. So typically our computers will after we approve it, will fall down into that policy, and then from that point on, they're good to go. And they can move from location to location. Their trusted tag will follow them as they go to with their laptop to another location. So that's, I don't know, Brad, if you have anything else to add.
No, I think that was great, and we also want to include you know, a dashboard view here and to show what this looks like after you configure it and nodes start showing up in the dashboard. So Peter, you can talk a little bit about that.
Right. This is what our IT staff sees when they log into the cloud policy server. So this dashboard is very customizable. So we opted to have instant visibility into obviously unknown devices and guest devices. Also worth mentioning is that you can set up a different management scope for different teams in your IT. So for instance, when our IT service desk staff logs into the cloud policy server, they may not see the total number of 3250 of all nodes, and they may not see like 5 unknown devices. They may see 2 or 3. And that's because we set up their management scope to be just for PCs, printers, VoIP phones, pin pads, projectors, and whatnot. And then when our network specialists log in, they can see the full number of nodes, 3250 at this time on this slide, and the 5 unknown devices. So basically, we are providing access and visibility on a need-to-know basis. You know, so we don't want the IT service desk staff to inadvertently approve or disapprove a firewall or a router or a switch. So they see what they need to see. And at the bottom, again, I don't know if you can see all this. At the bottom, you can see the content of our unknown devices group at the time when we took this picture. So you can see that there are some interesting devices that connected to our network. Somebody attempted to connect Samsung TV, you know, straight to our network. You know, and then another one down below is somebody brought Magic Jack. That's a VoIP phone, and this Verifone, the first record, is also some sort of a VoIP phone that, you know, we had no visibility into this before we had Genian. So people could connect, you know, and then, you know, not necessarily with bad intentions, you know, but, you know, we just don't want these devices to be connected to our network, period, right? There is one device here that was actually a legitimate device, and that's this PC with the host name PC 2123. As you can see, it was detected that it's a member of the main, but it's missing a MAC tag, trusted MAC tag. So it was missing the second condition. So like we said on the previous slides, we initially explicitly approved all the nodes on our network. So once we put the trusted tag, MAC tag on this PC, then it just instantly disappeared from the unknown devices and fell into the default group, which is permit all. So that's basically.
That's a great overview, Peter.
Very like a granular visibility and control at your fingertips. So
sure. Well, we talked about how important monitoring is. Well, monitoring is something that's very important. So we've got anytime a new device or a new platform is detected, or an enforcement policy is changed, or really any kind of log filter that you want to set up, you can actually configure notifications. So you know, here's just 2 examples of different log filters that you could set up for either a new platform is detected, or if an enforcement policy change. You may want to know if a node was matching on one enforcement policy and then starts matching on another enforcement policy. That might be something of interest to you. And these can get as granular as, every single time a new device connects, right? Or you can make them more complex. But it's important to actually monitor. And then what you can do with this is so you don't have to constantly be in here looking at logs, you can actually set up different actions. So every time something happens, this is a very simplistic log filter if a new MAC connects to the network, but every time something happens, you have multiple options of what you can do. So here's just a couple of them highlighted. You can email or SMS your network admins. You can actually do a webhook to something like Slack or Teams. We actually have a video on our website to show you how the Slack integration works. And a device that meets whatever criteria in a log filter can automatically populate a message in a Slack channel. And then you can also assign tags. So you can have, if a particular filter occurs, like if you get a feed in from a SIEM or some other IDS that's on your system and a threat's detected, you can dynamically assign a tag indicating that a threat is detected on that node. And then wrap this up real quick, and then looks like we have some other questions coming in. This is sort of just a visual picture of what some of these notifications look like. So whether it just be anything that is occurring natively or organically inside of Genian's, like a new device connecting or something, or an enforcement policy changing, or if it's something more like an IDS or a SIEM sending alerts and threat information to Genian NAC, and then it sending notifications out, you have a lot of options here, and being able to, open a ServiceNow ticket or send a message to Teams or Slack or email or SMS. The great thing about that is it's just a notification that something happened, but you don't need manual intervention. That's just telling you that Genian's already performed an action, quarantined a node, and it's just an FYI. You don't have to run and drop what you're doing and do something. So I'm going to jump into some questions here. Okay. Yes, we definitely can share the presentation deck afterwards. I also believe potentially we could be recording the webinar, so absolutely. Young for that. And then Kadar is asking, how do you achieve device authentication use case, AAA use case? So you can actually do authentication with Radius if you prefer. If you recall earlier on in the presentations, one of the things I said is there's a built-in Radius server. So if you're more familiar with Radius, you're comfortable with Radius, you like Radius, you don't have to use ARP enforcement. You can actually use Radius to do all, MAC authentication or EAP-PEEP or EAP-TLS. Any of those would work. Or you can combine the two. A common option is you could use Radius for authentication, but then you can use ARP enforcement for post-authentication access. And yep, so Radius authentication use cases, many of those also on our website, and it's not the focus of this webinar, but I have videos and actually webinars that are very specific to Radius use cases. So we can meet them all, including VPN Radius authentication. And then from Mark, we have, what is the process for adding a computer to the domain if it is not trusted by default? And I think one of the things I talked about a little bit earlier, Mark, was that you can actually make exceptions in a couple different ways. So if you have something that needs to join the domain and it's not on the domain yet, you can make a MAC exception for it when it's first coming up after it's being imaged. So you can configure your policies however you want for those devices that are brand new devices that are being onboarded. So
in our case, we basically, when we image the new computer, we just open up the console and we just quickly approve we put it on the new machine, and you're done with it forever, right? We were toying around with the idea of creating a separate VLAN to kind of as a landing stage for the new computers, and we may still go ahead and do it, but for now, like we just simply open up a console when we're imaging 10 new machines. We have them all 10 caught in unknown group, highlight them all, we put the trusted tag, and you continue with your imaging process.
Great. And I know we're coming up close to the top of the hour here. Brent also asked if we work with Owl's products, so I'll have to take a look at that product. But really what you're seeing here is we've actually got an external systems integration page on our documentation on our website that shows all the different external integrations we do. They're not proprietary, so they're based on Syslog or API. So they're, both of those can be used. So really any system that's capable of sending a syslog or a system that's capable of integrating, we have a REST API that City of Kitchener is not using, but it's there built into the NAC. So many external systems we integrate with can use the REST API to perform actions inside of Genian NAC via the API, and also can list information. And in fact, we also have another video of that on our website as well. Lots of videos on our website.